Yes, that's right, folks. Don't be too alarmed, but we have indeed earned the little blue dot on your Spotify or your Apple Music. A new episode of Believe in Brits podcast is here. Do apologise for the for the lengthy delay. I was going to say the slight delay, but I think that we've probably gone a little beyond that, haven't we, chaps? I'll take the slap on the wrist for this one, I think. Partially didn't want to do it. It was let's be honest. We'll sort of get into it, but it's been pretty depressing being a Browns fan over the last few weeks. But also, just come back from South Korea, and I've also just bought a house as well. So in terms of the last few weeks, I've been rather incommunicado, apart from a few WhatsApp messages. But I've been dragged out of my stupor by these two lovely gents here either side of me, Shaun and Owain. Chaps, it's never been you two. I've always been happy to speak to you two. Always, always and forever. Shaun, how's your last month been, mate?
Pretty good, mate. Apart from most Sunday evenings, let's be honest. Life in general's been pretty good, but yeah, it's been a bit shocking, mate. I mean, yeah, we're going to obviously get into it in a bit of depth and a bit of detail, but not exactly the season we were all probably either expecting or certainly hoping for, has it? So yeah, plenty to discuss, mate.
Yeah, I can see that you're sporting a Villa hoodie of sorts. I believe that is by looking at the blurred logo there in the corner. I'm assuming that's just to guard off the negative spirits that are around and seek for some positivity in your life.
Absolutely, mate. We will enjoy that train whilst that is in the forward direction, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I was at the Bologna game on Tuesday, and yes, I did let out a tear or two when the Champions League anthem came on. Bit of a, it was a 7-year-old's dream come true. That I used to remember putting the Villa '82 team on the PlayStation 1 Champions League game way back when, and it had like the old Villa Park decked out in the Champions League livery all around the sides, and seeing it all definitely sort of hit home. Sort of thing of which, if you're over in the States, you might not fully understand, because really the NFL is the NFL and you don't have much outside that, but that's like pinnacle to a football fan. Speaking of football, Owain, you've been doing quite well of late. Been
Yeah,
bagging the goals and everything else. It's been quite a ride watching you from a football perspective.
yeah, it's been a really good season for us with a round ball. So we're sitting second in the league at the minute. I know, TNS have got a few games in hand over us, below us, but yeah, amazing start of the season. So long may it continue, and we might get the Champions League music on in the background of some of our
No,
games.
because and then we're just going to have to do a Believe in Brits pod trip down
Correct.
just to witness that. Although if that's the case, we might end up being at Villa Park anyway, and it might be a short trip. So, chaps, obviously a lot to discuss. Let's not beat around the bush. The last 6 weeks have been brutal. Currently sitting 1-6. I have to keep check with a wine, because I'm always 1 week behind seemingly, and it seems a little better than it seems. But 1-6. Our only win coming against Jacksonville. The more shocking losses coming at the Giants, the Commanders, to name a couple. Not necessarily been too far away from most of the teams in there, but mainly as a way of they've always been slightly out of reach come the second half, and we've sort of like made it look a little better than it is. And it's been very much a case of trying to find graces. Pretty much not just the quarterback either, although we'll obviously get into that and all the different holes and issues and injuries and fan unrest and everything else. Just imagine everything possible. It's happened to the Browns this season. So, chaps, that sort of like set out the storm. My opening question to you guys as we kick this off, and it's going to be a bit more of a laid back sort of like look back, look forward, is what have you made of the first 7 weeks of this? If you think that this is the first third of the season over now, we're a third of the way in, more than we're coming up to a half pretty much. Yeah, actually, it's a half in 2 weeks. So as we come up towards the halfway stage, is it all doom and gloom? Is there stuff at which you're thinking it keeps you going, or what's the speedometer at?
I think for me personally, you said third of the way through the season then, and that almost gave me a heart attack because I was like, fucking hell, I have to watch another 2/3 of this season. No, it's been a rough watch, isn't it? Like nothing about the games have been any sort of fun. Literally, maybe outside of a couple of defensive performances here and there, from a couple of players. Denzel Ward stands out, JOK stands out as a couple of players that have had good seasons and have been nice to watch at times. But other than that, it's been really shocking, to be honest. I don't think, well, none of us have seen this coming. If you go by the predictions that we made
Oh no!
before the season, they look quite appalling at this point, don't they?
Oh yeah, we were supposed to be 6-2 by this point, I think,
Yeah.
or well, no, sorry, 5-2. I think it was at this point that most of us had it down as. Shaun with a
just
perfect 7-0.
It's wild how far off we've been with them, and you can't really say like anything major went wrong early doors for that to be the case. Like the team was the team, like they had all the players that they needed out there all the way through those games, apart from maybe 3/4 of the last one, and it's been a rough watch. Going forward, I think from a personal level, like one of the reasons why, you mentioned why we haven't done the podcasts and sort of put it all on yourself, but it's far from that. I've not wanted to do them either. I've spoken to the two of you a couple of times so far this year and said watching Watson take all the snaps was something that was really bothering me. We've had long spells since he's been here that we haven't had to actually witness him and try and get behind him and stuff like that. And that was bothering me all the way. So injury aside, because, there's been a lot made of the fans cheering the injury, and, we've all three of us said at the time that it wasn't particularly nice to watch. But going forward, for me personally, I think I can start to relax and enjoy the games a little bit more. Even if we are getting battered like we have been, at least you can sort of root for DTR if it's going to be him, or same thing with Winston. At least there can be a little bit of enjoyment from that standpoint, and now we can start kind of looking towards a future as well, a future without Watson, which is something that excites me personally.
Yeah, no, definitely get that. Although I can see you omitted Bailey Zappi there. I'm pretty sure that he's going to be the future at this rate. I mean, he'll end up starting the game. It's written.
He's won more games in what are we calling it now? Huntington Bank Stadium than
Huntington Bank Field.
Yeah, there we go. He's won more games there than Jimmy Winston, I would bet. So,
I might have to look into that actually.
I can't remember Winston ever winning the game there, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into that. Whilst
we all remember the Zappi one where we went into that game full of confidence, even though we lost. I think it was the Jets game the week before that we chucked away.
Yeah,
but we thought, this rookie, well, whatever round pick he was, even if he was a UDFA, we'll go and murder him, and then he throws 3 touchdowns on one of the best defenses in the NFL at the time. So,
Owain, how dare you bring up such painful memories on the Believeland Brits podcast, home of the Cleveland Browns in the UK? God, have we not gone through enough? Good Lord, we haven't even let Shaun speak yet, and he's the optimistic one of the bunch. Shaun, how have you found all of this, bud?
I'm trying to think of the right word to sort of say. I've just found it really excruciating, to be honest. It's probably not the right word, but it's been awful. It's been absolutely awful. And it's just been like banging your head against a brick wall because you just watch the same rubbish product go on the field week after week after week after week. I'm not particularly bothered at this stage what side of the what's an argument you sit on, in terms of the off-field stuff or whatever. I've always tried my damnedest to try and view it through the prism of just judging it based on what happens on the field, and that's proved incredibly difficult at times. But this season, we're not talking about a poor offense. We're talking about historically one of the worst offenses ever to be put out on the field, and to still have people trying to sort of jump to defences is just mind-boggling to me. I mean, we said at the time that it was a decision that was going to split the franchise in terms of the fan base, and it still continues 3 years later, despite, like I say, genuinely, and I'm not just saying this, I know I've had this debate with people, and some people will tell me that data doesn't matter and all the rest of it. Well, I'm sorry, these things are tracked over a prolonged period of time, and I think we're ranked something like the 750th worst offense in the last 20 odd years or something.
I
It's
knew
just,
that doing this was a mistake.
Yeah, well,
it's felt like that watching it as well, hasn't
yeah,
it?
and look,
It really has.
we need to move forward. I mean, essentially, there's two ways of looking at this now. There's the slight relief, if you like, that potentially have we closed the book on an era that most of us didn't even want to open to begin with. That's the optimistic view. I think it also brings to light the fact that this is now going to be a difficult process for the next couple of years, because we've consistently said the only real positive way through this was him actually playing well. Because I don't care who's the GM, I don't care who's the coach. If you've got 25% of the cap in one player that's essentially not going to see the field, I don't care who you are, that's going to make your life incredibly difficult. And that's absolutely the case, moving forward from here. I think Owain's right to call out the couple of bright sparks. I think Denzel Ward's been fantastic this season. Probably took his game to a whole new level. Is that possibly because he outshines the other other cornerbacks? Could well be. There's been a drop off. Martin Emerson has fell off a proverbial cliff, whereas Denzel Ward seems to have absolutely peaked the mountain, doesn't he? So, Denzel, I think for me, has been consistently our star performer on that side of the ball. I think he's been really, really positive. You're really struggling with anybody on offense. I hate to say that, but you really are struggling
You
with.
really do. I can't
Yeah,
think of anyone.
struggling with anybody.
Usually you go to someone on the line even, but you can't do that.
No,
Petonio looks like he's on his last legs, if I'm honest. But he's been asked to do something that he's not usually doing. Everyone on the line's playing musical chairs. Jed Wills literally seems like the worst player that the Browns have had, and where we've seen a lot of bad players. Not just this year, but like in general. And he seems to fit the mold of the 1-31 classes rather than this current class as well. So no, you're definitely right there.
So it's been frustrating. It really has been frustrating. I think obviously, as I say, moving forward now, I personally would have gone a different direction to what they've ultimately gone. I don't know how much DTR's finger injury has played a role in the decision to start Jameis Winston. I think he looked reasonable in the limited action that he saw on Sunday, but I always caveat that with the Bengals were playing ultra prevent defense at that stage. Jameis is always going to excite you. He's going to make some throws. Some of them are going to come off, and you're going to go, "Wow, what a play!" And others you're going to scratch your head and think, "Well, what has he even seen there to even throw that ball?" So, at least it'll be something a bit interesting. I was fed up of just watching check down Charlie by the end of the last 3 weeks of Deshaun. He didn't turn the ball over. He didn't get sacked as much, but there was a 25-yard, play open on the field, and he would rather sort of dump it off 2 yards to the running back. Instead of moving the chains consistently, we were forever in second and long, third and long, and we just couldn't sustain drives. And as I say, people may well clutch at straws and tell me he had a really good completion rate in his final appearance of the season and all the rest of it. I'll point out the fact that he got 0 points on the board yet again by the time
Yeah.
he exited. So I don't want to talk too much more about him, if I'm honest, because, like I say, I'd like to think that we can turn the page. My ultimate fear, and we shared this amongst ourselves, is, I hope we are permanently closing that book. There's a real nagging feeling that we might not be. But I suppose we'll get into that, because ultimately you can't have the kind of season that we're having without something monumental changing. So I suppose that's where the pod will lead us throughout the course of it.
Yeah, still owe $150 million. So, there's there has to be a path to that being worth something in terms of seeing him, because I mean, obviously I think I prefer to not see him come back as well, but you look at the figures, and then there was a skit that I watched actually from one of like the comedians like on Instagram that do like NFL sort of skits, and it was essentially a press conference of Stefanski doing the whole, no, not everything is his fault. We've got to get better across. And it's basically the fact that he's reading from a script, and Haslam's there, like rubbing his hands together, going, "That's right, say all the right things." And Andrew Berry's going, "No, I'm ready to admit that we've made a mistake here." It's like, yeah, but you will be fine. You'll be toast. I'll be toast. Let's just get him to continue saying this, because otherwise it's done for. And you do wonder whether or not it's a case of people just trying to keep their jobs at this point, just hoping it'll work. But at some point, you got to think that it's do you continue to sit on it, or do you need to get off the pot? And I think that we needed to get off the pot a year ago. And this is kind of just confirming it now. We have enough data now. We've got 19, 20 games of Deshaun Watson football. It's not good enough. Simply, it's not good enough. And he's had good line play in that time. He's had enough time to throw. He's had open receivers. If you want, you can even add all the dropped passes, and you can put that in as him being positively affecting play, etc. And his stats are still bad. So people are quick to defend. People are quick to attack, but data suggests that you're not 750th worst offense in the NFL all time by accident, or by a few drops, or by a little bit of poor O-line play. You're in it because pretty much every stage is inept. And this comes on to my next thing. So the Browns are now shaking it up pretty spectacularly, in the fact that Stefanski's giving up play calling. It has been a bugbear of many a Browns fan for however long he's been here, which is about 4 or 5 years, something like that now. And it's always been a question, and he's doing it now. Concerned? I mean, I think that we're all still on the bus of Kevin wanting Kevin to stay around. So with that in mind, are you concerned that we've passed it on to Dorsey and we're keeping the spread offense?
I don't know what to make of it. I don't know what you two are going to say as the answer. We haven't really spoken too in depth about it. There's loads of obviously theories as to why he's done it. Some people are saying that it smacks of a move that he's gonna, get fired at a bye week, and then Vrabel comes in, as a lot of people want, clearly. And then others are saying that surely if he was insecure about his job status, that he would keep the offense in his own hands. I don't know which side I fall on, to be honest, because I think you could make arguments either way. I think you could say, on the point that he would keep it in his own hands, I think you can make that argument, but you can also make the argument that it's not his choice.
Mm.
In the case that he would be fired, I'd imagine it's coming from above, the sort of telling him, look, you're not going to be here much longer, or stuff to that effect. We need to, have a contingency from bye week to the end of the season. And if Kevin's gone, they need to they need someone to call the plays, obviously, at that point. I don't know what side of that I believe. I think trying to guess which one of them stays, or if they all stay, or if they all go, is really, really tough at this point. I'm hoping they both stay, to be honest. I know different people will have different opinions on both of them, but I just think they're two smart people, and I would hate for them both to walk out the door. If I was to keep one of them, it'd probably be Stefanski at this point, to be perfectly honest, out of the both of them, because someone has got to fall on the sword, I suppose, for the Watson thing. But I'm
And you,
conflicted
you,
about
you,
that as
you
well.
can't get rid of the one person that you really want to, because they're the ones supplying the money and making the ultimate decision. So it
Bingo.
is A, B, or KS.
But you know, the fall on the sword thing, I'm kind of conflicted about that as well, because I think all three of us agreed at the time of the trade that it was probably from a football perspective, purely football perspective, the right thing to do. You looked at the quarterback, the football player, Deshaun Watson, at that time, and other than, like, I think we all thought that the mental stuff could catch up with him, and that the scrutiny he was going to be under is different to anything he dealt with before, and it was impossible to know what that was going to do to him as a person.
Mm-hmm.
But as a football player, and a purely football player, he was an upgrade over Baker Mayfield at that point in time. There's no doubt in that. We all said at the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's no. We were given the devil's this choice, really. You know, you have this guy that's going to get you to a Super Bowl window, essentially. You're going to have to take some flack,
Yeah.
but it's our best choice for now.
So
And
obviously,
you begrudgingly say yes, but you do that with the knowledge that it's got to come through. And that's something which we consistently said on this pod as well, is that it's got to go in that direction. And it just quite simply has gone the opposite.
all of us said at the time that we wouldn't have done it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
plain and simple, all three of us said we
Yeah.
wouldn't have done it for off the field reasons. We wouldn't have done it. But
Mm-hmm.
you look at the trade now from a football perspective, the process of what they did, in my opinion, from a football perspective, wasn't a bad one.
Oh, the money, though. From a football's
The
perspective.
money was necessary. The
No, no,
money
no.
was necessary because
Otherwise he wasn't going to do it. But
he wasn't going to do it. Yeah, and
by
then
the same token, though, from a football perspective, right? If we're just going from that, from a football perspective, you do not fully guarantee a contract without seeing as
yeah,
to
well,
what he's like,
yeah.
because
In
from a
hindsight, like I said,
football perspective, we've hamstrung ourselves to a piece of shit that
mhm,
is made out of glass and throws as if he is made out of glass.
yeah, and like I said, in hindsight, you'd 100% say that. But if you're playing devil's advocate, if he was playing like a top 5 QB now, I think he's getting paid like maybe top 10 money as a QB at this point,
Mm-hmm.
with extensions that have followed him. So then you might be saying, "Oh, we locked him in guaranteed money to a contract that's below market value." So yeah, I think it's harder to weigh up than simply, "Oh, he's been shit since he's got you. Someone needs to pay for what happened," because I think it's
You're
a
just
bit
trying to
of
keep
in the
AB about
system.
this, right? This is mental gymnastics to keep AB.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. And listen, I can't be objective because I like the guy and I think he's clever. I think he's good at what he does. I think he catches a lot of
Not
flack for
asking you
stuff.
to be fair. It'd
Yeah,
be
and
very boring if you were.
I think he catches flack for, because we're so locked in on the Browns, I think he catches flack for stuff that you see across the league as well.
Hmm.
So, like, a lot of people say his draft record's crap. Like, there's data out there that says it's average. And if you
Yeah.
look at the draft, I personally think that a lot of it is luck, to be
Hmm.
honest. And I think if someone has a really good record after 2 years of being a GM, the likelihood is he's probably gonna come back to average at some point, because it's all, to a certain extent, luck.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I think that's how I think about it. I know different people have different opinions. Sean may have a different opinion, and if he gets fired, I can't really argue with it either. So
Sure.
Yeah, I'm a huge advocate in stability, and I think that's what's been actually like a real pleasant difference over the last 4 years. It seemed like every off season we were going around this merry-go-round, and we've been big supporters of Stefanski collectively on this show. I know he's got his detractors out there, and everyone's entitled to their opinion. That's fine, but I always just find the argument baffling. There's three coaches that have won the Super Bowl in the last 5 years.
Hmm.
Yeah, they're all trying to do the same thing. There's only one that can win it, and one of them's done it 3 times in Andy Reid. So, it's a hard thing to do in terms of sort of that ultimate getting over the ultimate hump, if you like. And I think he's consistently been pretty good. To sort of revert this back to the initial question about the play calling, let's not forget that's essentially what brought Stefanski to the dance. That's the thing that surprises me with this move. I think it's clear to see, and we've just talked about the offense being historically bad. I think it's a brave call to sort of stand up and say, look, something's not working. We need to try and change something. Again, you'll always have people that think the head coach should be the head coach and nothing more than that. There's plenty of successful head coaches. I just mentioned Andy Reid. He calls his plays at KC. So, it can be done. I'm not a huge advocate of one way or another, particularly. I think if you've got somebody that's good at it, utilise the skill set for them to do what they're good at. I think ultimately my view on it, I initially sort of went with the viewpoint that it probably to me sort of indicates that Stefanski's in a really strong position. Because for me, as I say, knowing that's what my strength is, I would be very, very disinclined to hand that over to somebody if my role was ultimately on the line with this. So whether there's been any guarantees or not, who knows? But I do think it's quite indicative of the shit show of a season that we're having, that we're all just having conspiracy theories about this because none of it makes sense. None of it makes sense. Dorsey was brought in supposedly to unlock Deshaun Watson. It certainly didn't. There was no inclination that he was going to move to Dorsey calling the plays prior to this injury or anything like that. It's a question that's come up repeatedly since the Dorsey hire, and he's always never budged off it. So very, very strange that's what would happen. The week that Watson goes down to sort of make the move, it like I say, it seems a strange one. It really, really does.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I would look at it, to be honest. I think ultimately, as I said at the opening, somebody ultimately will no doubt pay a price for a historically bad season if it ends up that way. Now, there are people that will tell you now, well, we should just look to lose out and get the highest draft pick that we can and all the rest of it. Guarantees you, sweet FA, as Owain's just said, the draft is nothing more than a series of lottery tickets. And yeah, you might have a slightly better ticket and a slightly better chance than somebody else. But don't forget the last time we had the number one pick, we took Baker Mayfield. And in that same draft, you had Lamar Jackson, you had Josh Allen. Now, ultimately, we can all sit here and say maybe if we'd have kept Baker, maybe some of this form that he showed at Tampa could have been on display here. Different debate for a different day. But fundamentally, you can't argue with those other two in terms of the impact that they've made consistently. League MVPs, took the teams consistently to the playoffs. So getting the first pick guarantees you nothing. I would much rather, if they could, it's incredibly unlikely. I'd much rather they finish 10-7 than 1-16. I don't care. I don't care if we end up picking 17th or 18th in the draft or whatever that may be. Honestly, couldn't care less. I'd much rather have a lot of fun for the next 9 weeks and watch something decent.
Yeah.
So let's see how it pans out. Fingers crossed it works. There'll be nothing worse than now seeing this sort of just really emphasise the fact that Dorsey's offense is just a bit shit and it doesn't work here. That'll be the worst thing almost that could happen, because that means we've got another 10 weeks of sitting through it.
Although stupidly enough, I think that's why he's done it.
And again, mate, that could be the conspiracy theory, but this comes back to
Yeah.
how stupid this season is, doesn't it? Has our head
Yeah.
coach deliberately sabotaged the offense by putting somebody else in charge? No other franchise, surely, he's having these conversations, and that is what we
No.
thought we'd got away from for the last 4 years. So the fact that it's returning, I think that's the thing that really has ground me down the last few weeks.
Hmm.
You mentioned that we were close in some of these games. Not once did I think we were going to beat Washington. Not once
No,
did I
no.
think we were going to beat Cincinnati. Not once did I think we were in any of these games, and it's that sort of almost inevitable feeling. I think Spencer said in the chat, hasn't he? Used to look forward to Sunday nights, and now I'm dreading it each week. And it's like this week. I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that we will get hammered this weekend. I
Oh,
will be
yes.
absolutely gobsmacked if it's not multiple scores. And then you're sort of thinking, well, why on earth do I want to keep invested in watching it? So that's what I say. I hope it goes well. I hope it generates some positivity. It'll be nice to just see some competence on that side of the ball, to be completely honest. So fingers crossed it does work, but there's so many conspiracy theories, and that's just because none of it just really makes a ton of sense. We're only 6 months removed from these guys signing extensions to be the
Exactly.
faces of the franchise moving forward. And if you liked them 6 months ago, surely you still like them now. Something's just very strange.
Thus, my conspiracy, right? So, mine is if you are a GM and a head coach that's under fire, but you brought in a completely new offensive system over the summer, what is the scapegoat that you can use in order to put everything under the table? The spread offense. I don't think we have a roster that is capable of running a spread offense. I don't think the wide receivers are great for a spread offense, especially if we got rid of Amari Cooper anyway. So you don't even have your intricate runner. So you give Dorsey the keys to make it seem like you are now fully embracing the spread offense for the rest of the season. It falls flat on its face. Kevin Stefanski has all of the ammunition in the world to say, no, we need to go back to smash mouth football. I want it to run the way in which it has worked for us. We are a ground and pound, give it to Nick Chubb behind two tight ends on the line set. We are a play action forward team. We need to get back to that. It is a offense that would then sort of allow us to wash our hands of Watson from a strategic point of view, because he just does not play that way and he's not comfortable playing that way. Asterisk there, of course, is the fact that Watson isn't comfortable playing anyway. So you have to take that into consideration. But he's even less comfortable playing in a Stefanski style offense. And then you bleed in someone potentially like DTR. Owain put in the WhatsApp chat last week that that the Hall of Fame arc was back on, and then he immediately threw a pick. So that was an interesting an interesting few minutes on that one. But I think either way, it's going to be more fun just because I think we'll be more invested now. Because as we said at the top of the show, or Wine said it, as soon as Watson was not the guy taking us forward, the mental block almost goes away. And, now I'm just looking for us to win games. Like you say, Sean, I'd rather go 10-7 rather than 1-16. I'd happily accept 6-11 at this point. I'd have, just for us to be competitive. I want to be able to go to Thursday night football in a few weeks in Cleveland and not see the Steelers put 40 on us. I just want us to enjoy Sunday nights again. Hell, some of the losses that we had in the two terrible seasons under Hugh Jackson were entertaining. They were frustrating, but they were entertaining. At the moment, we're not even getting that. And we are only 1 year removed from being playoff football with Joe Flacco, PJ Walker, DTR, whose first name I kept messing up, and my own fiance had to correct me, who's a Bucks fan. So with people who I'm literally forgetting names of, and yet got us into that position. We are not that far removed. The issues cannot be that deep set. So, identify the route. I think we all know what the route is, and route it out. So with that now leads me on to my next thing. What does the rest of the season look like? What does a satisfactory rest of the season look like for you both? And do you think that we need to blow everything up and go again? Or do we need to do something of which I think the Steelers have been quite good in doing, which is just identifying a few little bits and retooling ourselves to be able to get back to where we towards being competitive.
To me, I'm gonna have a different opinion to Sean slightly on what I want to see for the rest of the season. I want to see us lose 50 to 51 every week for the rest of the season. Because although I just mentioned about luck in the draft, and I agree with Sean, like having a top 3, top 5 pick, it doesn't guarantee you anything. Like, especially when it comes to quarterbacks, we've seen year after year after year, Mahomes getting picked. What was he? 12th? I want to say 10th pick.
Yeah, he was the one I was thinking of when
Yeah.
you were going through that. Yeah,
He was 10th pick. Our esteemed QB1 was like 50. He was after Mahomes, wasn't he? Deshaun Watson,
he
and
was.
ended
Yeah.
up having a really, really good career at Houston, not with us, obviously. But like I said, like having the QB like picked early doors doesn't make a difference. The one thing that I would say makes it a little bit of a difference is if the Browns aren't really keen on a QB in this class and they want to wait, that's when having the top pick or a top 3 pick makes a difference, because I think having a top 1, top 3 pick, top 5 even, if used correctly, could make a retool real quick. Or, I can't see them rebuilding. I can't see them doing things like trading Myles Garrett or anything like that. But if they do want to retool quickly, I think trading down from a top 5 pick would be a good way to do it. Even if they do something like take a top 5 pick, trade it back, like say Sanders is going to go in the top 5, for example, or Cam Ward are going to go top 5. Find a team that's desperate to take one of them, rinse them for whatever they want to give up to take that pick, and then trade back to like mid first round, late first round, and then take a swing on a QB if they really want to take a swing on the QB. Play him in year 1. If he's no good, then you go into 2026 in a prime position to to take one of the better ones in that class. So that's where I would have the slight difference in what I wouldn't mind seeing for the rest of the season. But yeah, essentially, I think all 3 of us in the same boat. What we want to see for the rest of the season is a bit of fun. Like this first 8 weeks or first 7 weeks, whatever it is now, has been a real slog to watch. And if we can just have a little bit of fun from now to the end of the season, I think that would be greatly appreciated by every single fan and probably every single player, because no doubt they are having a hard time in that locker room right now. And if it is going to be this coaching staff going forward, I would bet that they would want a little bit of positive energy going into next season.
Yes, it would be a very crap summer otherwise, wouldn't it? Sean, hearing that, you've sort of in a similar boat. I know it's kind of a different sort of opinion on the draft, but obviously Owain is our draft aficionado, so of course he's going to be a bit more of a of the 3 of us. Owain, you are. Don't shake your head.
Of the 3
So,
of us,
yeah,
but that's quite a big caveat before anyone singles me out as some.
like Sean's the most optimistic out of the 3 of us, but he's definitely not the most optimistic Browns fan going.
I watch more college football than the 2 of you, but the 2 of you watch 0 college football.
No,
So
I was gonna say
not as-
I watch Ohio versus Michigan
yeah,
like
so it's
every
not
year,
a
and
big
that's about it.
endorsement of how knowledgeable I am about college football.
Sean,
look,
how you see
I'm
it,
not.
mate?
Yeah, look, I'm not obviously naive to the benefits, if you like, of ending up with those higher picks. I think obviously, the Bears are probably a good example at the moment, aren't they? Where they had one last year and obviously was able to trade it back, and here they are now, and they've sort of kicked on. So certainly, if you do land in that position, then obviously you deal, with the hand that got dealt. So if we ultimately end up there on merit or lack of merit, as the case may be, then so be it. We obviously deal with it at that stage. I mean, for me, the slightly worrying thing from the draft perspective is you look around the roster now. I mean, you mentioned Jedrick Wills earlier. That's a huge hole to fill. Left tackle, generally speaking, that's a position most teams look to occupy through the draft. There's not many good left tackles that ever hit free agency unless they're really aging and, potentially a 1 or 2 year deal at the back end of the career. But then that's the kind of player that's going to want to go on a challenger. They're not going to want a part of a rebuild or a retool, whatever phrase you want to use. We've mentioned Joel Batonio, again, certainly on the back nine, not helping, let's be honest, with the player that he's had either side of him, so, potentially, if we get Joel a bit of help either side of him, maybe he wouldn't look quite as vulnerable as he has done, but, Batonio, he's aging, there's no doubt about that. So you go right across this line, really. Pocic has been poor. I think that's fair to say. He had a good first season, but since that contract, he hasn't played up to that. Teller's obviously been injured. He's back this week. I think we'll see a huge uptick in the line play. I think that right guard position, whether it's been Zinta or whether it's been Michael Dunn, has been pretty poor. And we thought we'd got an answer at right tackle in DeJuan Jones, but he's been shocking this year. And Conklin, injury prone. Surely to God they're not going to re-sign Conklin again.
No.
So I've just gone across the line there. There's 4 potentially that you're replacing. So as much as I'd love this to be a quick sort of, retool, if you like, rather than a rebuild, what I would say is, what I certainly don't want to see happen is what's happened in the past where it has been a complete fire sale. We've traded everything away to gain more assets. We've traded down premium draft positions just to literally pick up another 4th rounder or the 5th rounder or whatever the case may be. I don't want to see that. I think, like Owain said, if Myles Garrett gets traded, then I think the front office, the owners, I don't think they'll know what's hit them.
Yeah.
If they were upset about a few fans and the reaction to the quarterback injury at the weekend, let's caveat that, by the way. There were probably 30,000 Bengals fans in that stadium. All right. And that's because the Browns have put an absolute shit product on the field. You put a shit product on the field, you can't sell tickets. You can't sell tickets, the away fans will have them. And Cincinnati had plenty there. But anyway, let me get off that.
Just to pick up on that, plus none of them would have realised the extent of that
exactly.
injury. Everyone just thought he fumbled the ball.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I can add a bit of meat to the bones on that as well from people that I know that were there. Apparently, a few were saying, "Oh, he's fumbled the ball and sat on it," so they started booing. Then it went very quiet. Then there was some cheering, but that was because they were starting to see DTR train on the side. But then when they realised just how bad it was, like when the when the
Video.
cart came out, it was eerily silent.
Yeah.
And then they clap and cheer him as they leave, as you do. When we've gone to London, for example, you do that. It's all been taken massively out of context, but it doesn't help when your own players chastise you as well. That just adds fuel to the fire.
I thought the players were piss poor Sunday. I really did.
Mm-hmm.
I really thought they were piss poor. Anyway, I've gone completely off topic.
It was going to be my next point anyway, Sean. Don't worry.
Yeah, well, fair enough. But yeah, I don't want to see, like I say, the likes of Miles traded away. If I'm honest, I'm struggling for PC on the offense. I mean, I wouldn't want to move and Joker on. He's had a tough season, battling back from injury. I think we've got a bit of a different view in this room about the wide receiver group. I'm really, really concerned about that group, full stop. Absolutely the jury is out for me when it comes to Jerry Jeudy. Yes, it's early doors. They're not going to give up on him.
He's got to prove it now.
Yeah, he's going nowhere. And I come back to what I said when we signed that contract, didn't we? That, again, it was a move that we didn't have to make. Not on the scale of Deshaun Watson, but same thing. We've paid a guy without really knowing what he brings. He needs to bring more than what he's bringing at the minute. I think we'd all collectively agree on that. We've all probably got a different confidence level as to whether he'll bring it or not.
Oh, yes. My fantasy teams are also saying that as well.
So, yeah, it's, as you say, generally speaking, I try and be optimistic, but I'm just looking at a lot of holes that potentially need to be filled. The defense, we thought Martin Emerson was going to be, good, has been for a couple of years. He needs to pick things up because otherwise that's another hole that you've got to fill.
I don't think he's necessarily done badly, though. I think that he's getting burned. He's getting burned late in games more than anything. I don't think he's necessarily been bad. I just think Denzel, for example, has really upped his game. I think that Greg Newsom's upped his game a little bit as well compared to last year as well. I think he's just looking like the third cornerback all of a sudden again.
I don't know. I think he's been pretty bad. I've got to be honest. I think he's been. I don't care whether he's been early or late. I think he's been pretty bad, to be completely honest. But we're splitting hairs. I mean, essentially, all I'm saying is there's a lot that needs to improve, and that's natural. We're 1-6. You know, if there wasn't lots of things that need to improve, we wouldn't be 1-6, would we? So,
No.
you know, there's lots of things that need to improve. And as again we said earlier, you know, I can't see them doing anything other than trading down to gain assets because they're going to have to manage this cap burden
Yeah.
next year. I was really frustrated when they extended Watson again, or like they moved the money around just before the start of the season, because it looked like it had gone long enough, and it was like, oh, maybe they're going to give themselves a little bit more wiggle room. You know, maybe they're just going to pay him a big chunk this year and actually start managing it. But they obviously took the plunge to sort of push it further down the line. And don't get me wrong, they could still do that again. You know, but by this rate, we'll still be bloody attached to the guy at 20, 30 something the way it's going.
It's all right, Sean. Hold on to the belief that he's going to retire.
Well, yeah, it would be nice, wouldn't it, if he did? But can't see it happening. I don't think he's going to do us any favours.
Nor me. But seeing those sort of things pop up, saying, well, maybe it was his last snap, and if it is his last snap, and like if it's his last snap in the league, for example, then we just pay him in retirement and clear it off the cap.
Would be lovely. It would be lovely.
I wonder if are they allowed to do that? Like from
they did it with Andrew Luck.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if he retires,
because
that's the only thing.
Cap only affects active players.
I didn't know whether the NFL would let them do that as like
I mean, they might create a new law.
Yeah, maybe just for him.
Yeah, they'll call it the Watson law or the Cleveland law, something to the Haslam Deshaun law, something like that. That will forever be an issue. But no, they did it with Andrew Luck, I'm pretty sure, and with a few others as well. I think Tom Brady as well was one, because obviously he was still owed a year. But then he came back, so then it went back on cap and Tampa had to make some moves.
Interesting.
So we've already kind of spoken about the fan reaction as well. That was going to be my next question, so I'm reeling a little bit now. But I've just to sort of like wrap a bow on that, I think that the fans were reacting because of the fact that Sean Watson got so roundly booed when entering the game as well. So that on top of the boo birds at the initial part of that, and that was, you sort of see that snowball effect.
The thing that bothered me about the players was that none of them at all mentioned, apart from Jameis kind of mentioned it, but not in a way that, I thought was fitting at all. None of them mentioned the fact that the fans may well be booing because of the off-field antics that he was ultimately brought to in a cloud.
I thought Myles Garrett covered it perfectly. He's been a model citizen for most of the pros.
Exactly. How much weight is most holding there?
Most is holding like 4 Myles Garrett's worth there. Like just like this.
You could think of the worst people ever. And then just say, oh yeah, he was all right for most of his life. Adolf Hitler.
I've never seen veins come out of letters before, but there's thick veins coming out of the M in most there.
He just looks an idiot. I thought they all looked idiots. I thought they all just looked absolute idiots. I mean, I've seen people praising Jameis's sort of speech, and I was like, what an absolute bellend. He just stood there. He's like, this bloke's put his body on the line for you. I'm like, mate,
his life on the line.
Oh, his life on the line.
He's throwing a football around. I'm like, oh my God, get over yourself.
Are we going to start saying Tony Grossi puts his life on the line because he drives his car to the ground to do his shit reporting every week?
Also, yes. And also, Tony, I'm not taking liability for what Owain says there. Please.
I'll take it all. He's
there
free to block me on all social media if he wants to. I can't believe he's still got a job.
But I don't want to be in trouble with any of the Cleveland reporters. Thank you very much. I don't
Mary
like the
Kay
way
can
that
jump
they.
on that as well if she wants.
I don't like the way they deal with libel over in the States. I'm very happy to stay out of that. The only player that I think actually covered himself in glory was Nick Chubb. He didn't actually say anything at the time, and in his press conference yesterday, I think it was, he sort of mentioned it being a way of saying, the fans are looking for something to cheer. We're representing the city. We need to go out and put out a product that the city can be proud of, etc.
Yeah, it
Kind
was
of the only
better.
person who's like healing like the rift between both sides.
It was definitely better, but it made it sound like they were just booing him, and if they were cheering his injury, that they just did it because he's been rubbish as a quarterback of the Browns and no other reason. And
I'm
that's what
pretty sure
bothers
that
me
the
personally.
players have a big reason for not doing that, though. Like,
Yeah,
for example, they
probably.
still have to
But
see him in the facility. They still have to. That the organisation have probably told them all to be
yeah,
hush hush
maybe,
on the
maybe,
threatening of Haslam coming out with a flipping wrench outside
maybe.
of Huntington Bank Field, and all the rest of it. So
But
I can
Jameis didn't.
understand them. I mean,
Jameis went out
Jameis.
there and said, "Oh, this is another obstacle that he has to overcome," and all of this nonsense.
Yeah, it
And
doesn't
maybe
actively
Jameis
call
sees
him a sex offender,
similarities.
though.
Maybe Jameis sees similarities in his own situations in the past, and the things that he's gone through, like off the field, because he obviously got in trouble for something relatively similar.
Oh god, I have to admit I haven't actually done my research on that. I
Yeah,
was looking
so
forward to just being moral, to
no,
just
No,
being.
no,
Jameis isn't.
nowhere near on the scale. Mate.
Yeah,
Nowhere
nowhere
near on
near.
the scale.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, I mean,
On the scale of like Joe Flacco, so nothing, to Ben Roethlisberger to Deshaun Watson, what's the scale like?
No,
he's
he's pretty
between
low.
Joe and Ben, and nowhere near
Okay,
Ben. I don't think, to be fair. But
okay.
I think for me, mate, just to sort of wrap it up, if you like, on a positive note, Nick Chubb's letter in the Players'
Oh,
Tribune. If anybody hasn't read it yet, go and read it.
absolutely.
And that told you all that you needed to know. In terms of what the fan base actually is genuinely like. Look, we won't deny it. All three of us have said we wouldn't have signed Watson. All three of us are quite pleased he's not a good playing quarterback. I certainly didn't cheer when he went down. If you did,
No.
that's your prerogative. That's completely up to you. Fundamentally, was I happy to see somebody else? Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think anybody should apologise for that. We're asked to
Mm,
invest time, effort,
Money.
resources.
Yeah.
People save thousands of pounds to go and travel across the states to go and watch them. People,
yeah.
spend hard-earned cash in Cleveland to go and watch them. And ultimately, you like I say, this is an historically bad product. Forget the off the field. It was absolute dog shit, beyond dog shit bad. So anybody would have been surely relieved to see anybody out there.
Mm,
So look, it is what it is. Like I say, we hopefully move on, turn the page. Look, if they've got any chance on Sunday, they're going to need the fans on the side, aren't they? So,
yeah.
ultimately, as I say, I understand they weren't going to come and throw their teammate under the bus, but the players aren't naive. If you're in that offensive room and you've seen what's been on tape and you know what the output's been, you're not naive to sit there and think, oh yeah, well, they weren't too happy with the
Yeah.
play that was on the field. Yeah, they're not stupid.
Yeah, but also I just think that NFL players don't have a lot of press training. For players that need to do a lot of press, a lot of those players don't do a lot of actual press
No.
relations, and you can tell that in some of their responses. Greg Newsom's and Shelby Harris's come to mind.
Shelby's was so bad as well.
Shelby
I
just
couldn't even get through.
continuing. If anyone sees the Shelby Harris podcasting bit, of which, why do the Harris brothers have an odd podcast seg that's online, which is just
I couldn't
baffling.
even get
Anyway,
through it.
The the best one I've heard all season, it wasn't even this week. Was it about week 2? My favourite wide receiver, Jerry Jeudy, said he was going to do some more running because he was tired after about half a dozen snaps on Sunday. That was about week 2 of the season. He was like, "Oh, well, I'll do some more cardio this week because I was a bit tired." Like, Jerry, you played about 15 snaps, pal. What's the matter with you? You know, I was
Yeah.
tired.
Yeah,
Oh, dear.
there's definitely some questionable stuff coming out. That's for sure. It's yeah. Oh man. Oh, cool. Right. I tell you what, gents, we'll wrap it up there. I actually feel better for getting some of this out. You two always make me feel better when discussing the trials and tribulations. I wish you two were around during the Hugh Jackson years. Although, show of hands, what's worse currently, this or the Hugh Jackson era?
The Hugh Jackson era was easier to watch because you were like, "Oh my god, are we gonna win a game this week?" Whereas this
Yes.
season was like,
Yes. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, the
What?
level of expectation this time around, this shouldn't be happening. Let's not beat around the bush. This shouldn't be happening. And as much as, like I say, I'm big enough to sort of, sort of say when things aren't, sort of going with my general consensus and opinion. I like Kevin Stefanski. He needs to win some games if he wants to keep his job.
Yeah.
It's as simple and as straightforward as that. I obviously hope that he does. I personally like him. Personally think he's good for the organisation. Is he the offensive mastermind people thought we were hiring? Probably not. But he's a pretty good sort of CEO type. He's
Mhm.
kept things together. He's managed difficult situations. He's got 2 playoffs in 4 years. So as I say, for me, I'm quite happy. Let's put it this way: I think if he was fired, I think he'd get another job in the next coaching cycle.
Oh
I've got
yeah.
no doubt about
Absolutely.
that.
Even if it's
Um,
just as an offensive coach or something like that,
yeah,
he'll be fine.
yeah, so like I say, that they need to win. Simple as that. It's a results-driven business. They do need to win. I can't see it this Sunday. Got to be honest.
No.
Can't see it this
No.
week. Um,
No. Ravens
but
too
they need
strong.
to.
That's for
But
sure.
they need to put something out there that gives you some hope that they could go and beat the Chargers.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah.
that's what's been
And
missing the last
really, the
month, hasn't it?
Chargers is that one, isn't it? You look at these ones, the Chargers and then Steelers at home are the two that I would earmark as games you should be going out and really looking to win, because then the schedule gets stupid after that. If you start to see us
Yeah.
go against Ravens again, Bengals, Chiefs. Chiefs is not too far away at
we
this
match up
point.
pretty well against the Chargers as well, and their deficiencies are their wide receivers. Our strength is our corners, so
Yeah.
we match up
So
pretty well against them.
yeah, that will be an interesting one. Just to give people a heads up, we're going to be pretty ad hoc in terms of when we decide to record. Just because I think that for our own mental health, I think that doing it on a weekly basis is probably not going to be the most effective use of our time at this rate. But maybe every 2-3 weeks, something like that, until the end of the year. We're also looking at different ways of engaging with you as well. So look out for some of that. It's something which we're looking to build for sure. We're definitely not going away. That's for sure. But until then, enjoy. I say enjoy. Enjoy the week. That is not. Oop, Owain, you got something to add?
Yeah, I'm just gonna, for future purposes, just give a little bit of excitement. At the minute, consensus big boards saying that we are projected to draft Shadur Sanders at 3 in the draft. So there's our new QB. But bold prediction: our next
Keep it
quarterback,
Clyde.
Cade Klubnik, quarterback Clemson, who's currently 166th on the consensus big board. He won't be that low for much longer.
Well, you've heard it from Draftman Hawaiian Jones there. I hear 166 on the big board and I cringe. I hear Shadur Sanders and I cringe as well, because that's just an Eli Manning situation just waiting to unfold. I can't imagine the Sanders family wanting to set up in Cleveland personally, especially if we are the boo boys of the league, as the players are trying to mark us down as at the moment. But hey ho. Anyway, we'll be back sooner than later. Try and enjoy the next few games, and we will see you next time. Thank you very much.
Wow, what a struggle. The way it should be, I guess.